Welcome to the Mad Singers Management Podcast from madsingers.com, where entrepreneurs and business managers learn and share. If you like the show, don't forget to leave a review.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Mad Singers Management Podcast. Today I have with me Vincent. Welcome to the show, Vincent.
Thanks, Mads. I'm glad to be here, buddy.
Excellent. So, Vincent, for those of my audience that don't know about you yet, would you mind doing a brief introduction about who you are and what makes you really awesome?
I don't know about really awesome, but I can tell you about a little about my background here. I own and operate wordagents.com. We're a content creation agency comprised of over 150 American writers and editors. I'm also an SEO. I maintain a portfolio of SEO affiliate websites. And actually, this week I became a restaurant owner. We opened a little Japanese izakaya on Long Island, New York.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Sure is. It was a lot of work, but it's about to pay off, so that's great.
Excellent. So one of the key reasons I brought you on this podcast is because you are good at both explaining and doing, I guess, but really talking people through how to build some really amazing workflows. And I really wanted you to share this with my audience because I think a lot of my audience sort of struggle with that aspect, both from a time, but also from a, let's say, motivational perspective. Why should I do this thing? So do you want to take me through a little bit sort of your workflow and your sort of thinking around getting a very sort of effective operational procedures?
Sure. This was something that I kind of became good at just out of necessity. Word Agents has always been a bootstrap company. I never took out any debt or anything like that. So I really needed to get the best bang for my dollar on every dollar spent. So we really take a very close look at any repeatable process, and we look at how we can systemize that as efficiently as possible. So in the past, we've really dealt with a lot of other SEO affiliate guys creating their content, but as we've grown as a company, we're starting to work with more mid-market companies. And I'm quickly realizing that it's kind of funny, it's kind of backwards, but these mid-market managers often don't have these processes in place. And a lot of times we're, midway through a project, and I realize that there's no system, and they're pretty much blowing through their budget because there's a lot of hecticness. So I thought maybe I could go through my process for creating an operational procedure to kind of shine some light on that and show how pretty much any process in a company can be systemized and automated for better efficiency and better ROI in the long run.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Take us through the magic.
Sure. So basically, whenever I'm looking at a repeatable task that I need to systemize, I go through the same process. And it always starts with reviewing the project or the task, and just starting with a brainstorm session around the workflow strategy. So for the most part, whatever business you're in, you're going to have a blueprint immediately for your task list. But in this initial brainstorm session, I'm just really looking for unique challenges for the project at hand. Every project, whether it be a client project or something we're trying to do internally, whether it be hiring new employees or scaling a certain part of the business, is going to come with a unique challenge. So the first thing we're going to do is snip out those unique challenges and just note them down so we know that we need to spend some time figuring them out when we draft our procedure. So after you go through that brainstorm strategy, it's time for the initial draft of your procedure document. And we're all used to this, it's just a normal bullet list or a tree diagram of the actual tasks in your process. But here's where you're going to look at those unique challenges and determine if there's a workaround, if you need to innovate a workaround, or perhaps you need to go back to the client and do a change order on the project to accommodate a third-party tool or extra staff you might need to overcome that unique challenge. So that's what we're doing in the initial draft of our procedure document. And once that's done, it's time to test it out, right? So you have a bullet list, or an operation document that you think might work but probably needs some refining. So the first thing I always do, and I would suggest this to any manager, is to do it yourself first. I mean, you're never going to know if the procedure and the task list you created is going to work, right away. And you don't want to hand it off to an employee because it's only going to cause more confusion if it's not, if it's not perfect, right? So I always do the procedure first. I go through the process that I created. I kind of refine it as I go in this first iteration. And I'm always recording a screen share video of me doing this. And after this process, I kind of find, some errors in my original thinking, and that's why I refine it. And the screen share video kind of helps when I pass it off to a team member to help them understand my thinking a little bit better, and provides them context on top of the document that I'm going to provide them as well.
Yeah, and one thing I would say here is, like, one thing we have always liked to do when either us or, like, we often like getting the team members themselves to create the SOPs. One of the tests that we love doing is sort of the blind test, where basically we will get a member of the team who is not part of that specific team to actually look at that document, go through it. So basically, without having the knowledge and understanding, that's a really interesting way to do it and really see if it works, right?
That's actually the last step in my process. So it sounds like you do that ahead of time, and we'll get to that. We call that the audit step, where we're going to hand off the document to another team member who has no idea about the process, and we just kind of see how far they can get with it. And the hope is that they can get through the process with no problems and no confusion. But if they do run into a problem, that's a good indicator of an issue for us, and then that goes back into the refining stage.
Yep.
But we'll get to that in a little bit here. Where was I here? So we do the screen share of the video, and then we hand off the procedure to a team member. And this is our first real test to see if this process is clear and understandable and will actually work in practice over the long term. So we give the team leader a small little project to use with the video and the document and see how they do. And then we take their feedback. And again, we go through another refining process, same deal, just kind of chipping away at the issues, creating more automations, more efficiencies as we go. And once that's done, once we have 80% of the way there with the repeatable process, at that point we empower the team member to maintain the document, right? I think a lot of people think of procedures as, you do it once and that's the last time you ever look at it. But we really think of it as a living document, something that's updated all the time, something that needs to be refined all the time. But at this point in the process, after I've done it myself and after a team leader has done a small project, we know that it's good enough to put into practice. And we're comfortable to empower the team leader to now take it over, and it's now their baby. And they'll be the one going forward to maintain an issue log of any issues that arose during the process. And once a month, we go through this issue log, and we then again refine the process as a result of that. And then going forward, we trust our team leaders to maintain this. And pretty much once we're at this point, it's hands off. For me, I can trust my team to maintain this document and update it as needed. And then the very last thing we do is what we were just talking about, the audit process. about once a quarter, we'll just bring in a team member from a different department or different area in the company, and we'll have them use the document to see if they can find any issues. And once again, if they do, we'll log that in our issue log, and we'll refine as needed. Yep. And this is pretty much the exact process that I use, and I did use to grow Word Agents from, a little sole proprietorship to the company it is today. And it's pretty much what we apply to any repeatable process in the business. And it does work out very well for us. And I do wholeheartedly suggest putting the effort into this to any CMO or marketing manager at a mid-market company, because you'll be able to extend your budget quite significantly if you can make your processes efficient with documents like this.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think one of the key mindsets, and I think you touched on that a little bit, but I think for me, from a high level management standpoint, is most businesses start out like this. And really what you want to do is as soon as the company does start growing more, right, you really want to push that responsibility for designing new processes down the organization, right? Because like in the beginning, it makes sense that you're doing it and you're having a handle on it and so on, because obviously you are, you know the business pretty well when you're sort of on an entrepreneur stage, right? And have 5, maybe 10 people.
Sure.
But one of the essential things is really making sure that as time goes on, you push that responsibility downwards in the organization, right? Because
I very much want to buy as much of my time back as possible, and what you just said allows me to do that. As the owner and the CEO, I can't be spending all my time creating these processes. But that's why it's very important for me to do it the first time, because I believe that you got to get your hands dirty, and it's a good signal to your team that you're doing the work too. And it's also something for them to emulate. After a few times of them seeing me create a process, then I feel more comfortable handing that off to them and from step one. And I know that we'll see a good result.
And one of the key things you said that's absolutely critical is for them to take ownership going forward, right? Because what actually happens in a ton of companies is they create these great processes, but they're never updated, right? And then 2 years down the line, no one actually does what's in the processes because, they keep refining them, but they're never physically updated as a document. And one of the ways that we always do to execute on that efficiently is exactly what you're saying, like handing down the responsibility to the person executing the task to actually keep the process up to date, right? Because in the end of the day, like as a manager, like if you're responsible for 100,000 processes, there's no chance on earth that you'll ever be able to maintain and update them all, right? But
absolutely, and I learned that the hard way. Just trying to do too much as the owner operator, and there's just not enough hours in the day. So that kind of goes into a little bit into I guess hiring philosophy. How you're going to hire people that you can trust to do this. But that's probably a little bit outside the scope of this conversation.
Sure.
But yeah, I agree 100%. And it's best we schedule these audits and these reviews regularly. So quarterly on the audits and monthly on the refining process. And all the management team members, they know that it's part of their job duties to maintain this. And I keep on top of them, maybe not to see what they refine, but just to make sure that they're at least keeping up on the document and keeping it up to date.
Yeah, they're going through the process, right? So that's key. And I think that's probably the second core point for me. So again, a lot of the time, like if you give people just the SOPs and say, hey, go do this thing, that's often, as an employee, that's not a very nice feeling, right? So you want to give people the ownership. You want to sort of say to people, hey, this is what we found works right now. However, you're a smart human being. If you find better ways to do this thing, we definitely want to know what you think. And we want to, like, this is not the end all be all document. This is the document as it is right now. And we want people who are awesome at this stuff who can help us make it even better, right? So I'm always super, super keen on making sure that employees get to have their say and potentially changing or updating and improving the processes so that they actually feel responsible. Because one of the key things that I saw in large corporations was the fact that, a process is put down and that's the way it is, no matter how, let's say, how stupid it is. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, but this one person high up in the organization said it had to happen this way, so we have to do it this way. And you're like, yeah, this cost the company like millions. But okay, right. If you want to, let's do it, right?
But that brings up a good point too. You don't want. My rule of thumb is one person to one document. So I don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. Yeah. Because when you assign more than one person to more than to one task, oftentimes there's confusion like that, and it's a he said she said type of deal, and nothing gets done. Yeah. So we always make sure that only one manager is assigned to one document, and that way that eliminates the confusion. Yeah. But to get back to what you're saying about empowerment, the biggest benefit of empowerment to me is just the ego boost that it gives the employee. It helps them feel like they're more part of the business and they're just not a cog in the wheel. And I find that once we empower an employee that hasn't been empowered in the past, it's very telling about the employee's interest in the company, right? If they get excited and they start asking a lot of questions and they really dig into it, that's a key to me. This person might be in line for a promotion in the future or may be able to take on a bigger role in the company because they really are interested and they're showing interest. And alternatively, somebody that's like, yeah, okay, I'll take this on, or someone that seems like it's kind of annoying to have another task added to their plate. That's very telling too, and maybe I have to think twice about giving this person more responsibility in the future.
Yeah, for sure, and I would say there's also a development aspect to that, right? Because like for a lot of people, there's different situations and so on, but a lot of the time, like sometimes people can be under pressure, they can be stressed, or it's not always a end all be all, but yeah, definitely. I mean, it's you often see people's real approach when you give them opportunity and empower them, right? So it's definitely where you want to be looking and where you want to be sort of seeing if you can,
for sure,
yeah, get the next steps out of them.
And I would say like the biggest, probably the most important step in my process is the audit process, and that's just the constant review of these things, because like you said, you can make it once, and if you don't update it for 2 years, a lot of times the tools that you're using in the process are out of date or no longer in existence. Maybe pricing has changed and that affects things. So if you're not looking at these documents at least every 3 months, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, that's good. That's good. I like the way you look at that. So, what's sort of your favorite thing? I mean, you have a team already. What do you want to share with the audience, like the size of your team and so on?
Yeah, sure. So we have. Well, I started I was the very first writer at Word Agents, and it was just through demand that we actually became a real company. But as of right now, I think we have 155 writers on our like public-facing team or retail-facing team, and then we have maybe 10 or 15 custom teams that are comprised of writers, from 5 writers to 20 writers each. Yep. And basically for those custom teams, this is the exact process I'm using when I build the workflow for the project. And it works fairly well. It takes about a week to get the initial document going before I pass it off. And then we just start the refining process.
Sounds good. And What's been your experience? So you have obviously grown it from the bottom up. What's been your experience sort of finding people for the next level and promoting people from within and so on? What's sort of been your strategy and your experience with growing the team?
For subordinates, I very much like to promote from within, just because I understand personalities at that point. If I do an outside hire, there could be some clash with personalities and management styles. So we like to hire from within. And it's not so much skill sets that I'm looking for, it's more personality traits. Like I mentioned before, I'm always looking for team members that ask a lot of questions, interested in making the client happy as opposed to just checking off, the boxes on a checklist. So someone that shows very interest in doing a great job. And those type of people stick out like a sore thumb because most people just want, they want their paycheck and they want to get back to their life. But, we always can see that the people that we're eyeing for a promotion and to grow from within.
Excellent. Yeah, and as you say, I mean, there's just people who just naturally stand out, right? And it's obviously key always to have a note on that and really encourage their growth as well, right? Because particularly when you're busy and particularly when a lot of stuff is happening, it's sometimes easy to kind of forget about, like, who's growing, who's doing really well. But you want to constantly actually look at that, and you want to constantly try and open up opportunities and give people, and for me, this is not necessarily about salary, but it's more trying to give people responsibility and see what they do with it, right?
Right.
Because
and on the same thought there, when you're dealing with a people, instead of just looking at resumes and job history, you're going to find some gems there that are going to be a lot less expensive than if you're hiring a well-experienced worker. Yeah. Case in point, our senior team leader, she just had a high school education, and she was a writer for us that we saw potential in, and we gave her promotion. And she's now in charge of 30 writers on her own right now. And, she didn't have any formal education or great on the job experience, but it was just her tenacity and interest in doing a great job that led her to be promoted, and she's excelling right now. So I think that's great for us and great for her as well.
And that's one of the key things for me, right? Like I am very, very keen on not looking very much at educations, but more so the other way. And I'm probably biased because I don't have one myself. So, but for me, it's much more about like looking at people and their contribution. Very often, what happens, like I initially when I started out in the Philippines, we hired a couple of people who had disabilities and things like that, was sitting in a wheelchair. But the thing is, obviously, when you're working on a computer, like if you can't walk around, that doesn't mean you can't sit down and write on a computer.
Right. And I love that. I love to be able to improve somebody's life, and you allow them to earn it. It's not like a handout or what have you. They're earning everything that they get coming to them, and
exactly.
that's a great feeling.
Yeah, and for me, it was just as much the fact that a lot of the time, there's a lot of people who are desperate for an opportunity and for a chance, right? And very often when you give them the opportunity, they will like not just take it, they'll grab it, right? And
sure.
Really, when you can find people who are that eager for an opportunity, like you just get so much better output, you get so much better, well, all the way around, right? You just get much better employees and so on. So
and then once I build that trust with them, then they're my go-to, and that puts them in line for even more promotions, raises. If I know that day in day out I can rely on a single person, they're set, and even with the girl I was just mentioning, she let me know that she never thought that she would ever have a job like this, and it was just a lack of confidence, and just giving her that opportunity has not only helped us, but it's helping her grow her career. And it's just, all it is effort. And she just put the effort in, and it worked out for everybody.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. What do you personally enjoy the most about managing a team of the size that you are right now? What's sort of the biggest satisfaction for you?
Well, as you probably know, it's a lot of hecticness. When I was just smaller and I just had 20, 30 writers, it was fun. It was almost like a family atmosphere. But for me, it's right now in today's environment, it's just overcoming the challenges. It's almost like playing a game. It's like how far you can level up and see what kind of challenges you can overcome with managing the team. And that's pretty much it. It's just overcoming the challenge. It's like a new. It's a new thing for me to overcome, and I get great enjoyment when we're successful.
Yep, definitely. And also, like, I've always found it as it's a great, like, running a business like that is a great way to get a lot of gray hair very quickly. So that's one benefit I guess you get.
Now eventually, I'm sure as we grow, we're going to have to bring in some business graduates as we scale to become a larger company. But for now, as we're a mid-market company, and this process works like gangbusters for us. So that's really why I wanted to address this towards mid-market managers, because like I said, it's funny. It's the SEO affiliate guys. They know this like the back of their hand. But when you get to a more traditional company, this kind of seems new to at least to the clients that we deal with.
Yeah.
So I could see this being very beneficial for them.
And that's one of the things. Like, so in the SEO world, that obviously a lot of people are preaching the, hey, build your processes, build your workflows. Like, there's a lot of people preaching that. Often, unfortunately, what they do miss a little bit is the whole empowerment piece, right? So very frequently it ends up being these like, hey, do this, follow this process, just do these steps, and they miss out that critical step of the process.
That's something that often pops up with our clients. They'll especially the SEO crew, they just hand off the SOP to us, and when it doesn't come back exactly how they had it in mind, they get a little upset with us. But again, it's probably because they didn't review it recently, or they're just using somebody else's document from a course or something that was shared with them. And you're right, that's the piece that's missing, the team member empowerment and the refining process. And sometimes we can overcome that, and other times that they choose to go elsewhere. But I think in the long run, those 2 points are really what's going to make them successful.
Okay, that was great talking to you today, Vince. Anything here in the end that you sort of want to share if people want to get hold of you, both personally, if they want to get in touch with your business, etc.? What's the right way to
Sure. Word Agents is always pretty busy, but we're always bringing on new writers and training them and increasing capacity. So if anybody needs some ghostwritten content, whether it be SEO content, website content, blog posts, you can email me at vincent@wordagents.com, or you can just come visit us at wordagents.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Vincent, for joining me, and have a great day.
Thanks, Mads. Take care, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Mad Singers Management Podcast. Please leave a review. It means the world to us. You can also learn more about management at madsingers.com.